Today I have a special guest with me. He's a concert and convention organizer, haunted house operator, actor, and author, and he's just written a great book called The Book of Top 10 Lists, 100 Top 10 Horror Lists from Celebrities. So let's welcome to Jim and Mike Talk Music, Cryptmaster CHUCKY, a.k.a. Charles Rosenay. Welcome, Charles.
Hey there.
Hey.
I love your hat. How you doing?
Good. So I want to start talking, let's start by talking about the Beatles. I know you're a huge Beatles fan. I assume you've loved the Beatles since you were a young age. And,
yeah. It's funny because for years I always said my first memory in life was seeing the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Okay, I was going to ask you.
And when I read this book, I remembered seeing The Bride of Frankenstein with my mom, and writing the book jarred that memory. So now I don't know. It's either one of those two were my first memory in life, but either one created a definite image for me for the rest of my life, because I went on to be a Beatles fan and promoter and all that, and went on to love the horror and the monster stuff too.
Is that the first time you saw the Beatles, or did you pretty much know who the Beatles were before you saw Ed Sullivan?
No, I was a kid, and we would watch the Ed Sullivan Show to see, I guess, Topo Joe or whatever the comedians were on that my parents would like, or Sandler and Young. I don't even know. Yeah. Because it was something that my parents watched and it was in the background. For some reason, that magical night when all the stars aligned and the world was, meant to be, when the Fab4 came on, I was mesmerized. I just, what is this? It took me like nothing else did. I probably loved baseball, at the time, and probably, loved recess a lot. But I think I was in kindergarten, so I probably wasn't even, there wasn't probably the whole day was probably recess. I just remember running around the playground the next day. I'm a Beatles fan. I'm like, it was, oh my God, like I'm an astronaut who landed on the moon, a Beatles fan. And that left such a, it's never been the same.
Yeah, I wish I had been born earlier sometimes, that I could have experienced something like that. I was born in 1965, so.
Oh, yeah.
So in 1978, while you were in high school, you decided to organize your first Beatles convention.
Sounds simple, huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, to organize a convention, that's it's not an easy thing, I would think. And
I didn't give it that much thought. So it was 1977 that I was a gopher. I was interning, kind of. I guess I was getting community hours. I don't know what, but I was working for this theater that had just opened in New Haven, Connecticut. And I was sitting with the main producer. He had a lot of respect for me because I had a lot of knowledge of music, even as a youngster. And he said, we're bringing in this Elvis tribute show, and we're going to be doing Oh Calcutta, and we're going to be doing Martin Live. He was giving me a list of all the shows. He goes, well, what do you think we should bring in? And well, of course, what did I say? A Beatles tribute show. Let's do Beatlemania. At the time, I had just seen Beatlemania on Broadway in 1977. I had attended my first Beatles convention in New York, and I knew there were shows in Boston and New York, and I thought, I'm in Connecticut. I'm right in the middle. Yeah. Let's do. And he said, well, there's already enough Beatle tribute shows. I go, well, let's do a convention here. I'll bring in 5 vendors, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, he came up with the name. He said, well, we'll call your company Liverpool Productions. You'll be the producer of it. Free rent. You put on the show. Make money. We make money. Whatever. Really beautiful. But then the theater closed. And he skipped town. But you know what? I learned what not to do in show business. I learned, pay bills, don't lie, don't cheat. I learned all the things which he was very, very guilty of doing, a lot of things he should have been doing. Long story short, I don't know what to do here. I've decided to do a convention. I've reached out to all these guests and vendors, none of whom said yes, but I'm trying to do the show. And I find this little hotel in New Haven that says, sure, come on in, writes me up a contract. I sign, and then I tell my parents what I've done,
Uh-huh.
and they're like, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
This isn't just, putting together a game of softball with your friend. You're putting on a major event here. You stand to lose a fortune. Of course, it was their money, so I understood why they said what they said.
Wow.
But I had a butcher cover which I sold to raise advertising. I did as much as I could for advertising, and I did a really cool campaign. There was this local paper which was called The New Advocate, and I ran a series of ads that said the Beatles are coming. Mind you, in 1977, 78, that got a lot of interest because the Beatles were still around. And then in subsequent ads, I put, well, sort of, or kind of, or
in small print.
Info coming. In tiny print, until eventually I put in the form of a Beatles convention. So by then I got hundreds of inquiries. And in those days, there was no internet. So I was compiling a mailing list. And then I would, when we finally had the hotel, and I had reached out to George Harrison's sister, Louise Harrison, who was living in Connecticut at the time. And I sent out all the feelers about her coming as a guest and never heard back. So I wound up getting a great Beatles band. I had one special guest, and I had about 5 dealers, and that was it. But everyone had a great time, and I lost a fortune, but I didn't stop. I continued, and as the years went on, obviously, it started to do well.
So that was pretty small convention. Or how many? Do you know how many people showed up?
150.
Okay.
The place only 100.
And that was the first convention in Connecticut, I would assume. Beatles convention.
It was. Next year we moved it to a college, and it did a lot better because it drew from the community plus the people. So, it probably doubled. We probably had like 500 fans, but we put ourselves on the mark because we started getting, by then I was really starting to reach out and getting better guests. By 1980, we had get David Peel, who recorded with the Beatles. I started to reach out to Al Williams, who was the Beatles' first manager, to come to conventions. And then in the early 80s, it grew. It blossomed. It was more successful. Came to some of my shows. By then, we were getting people like John Lennon's sister, Julia, came to the shows. Cynthia Lennon, John's first wife. And in 83, I started doing the Beatle tours to Liverpool. So I had a direct inroad to people who a lot of people weren't getting friends with. So then I was bringing them back to America to be guests. So I wasn't on the level of the national New York, Chicago, LA, but I was getting there. And I was willing at that point to also do shows in different markets. So I had Seattle, I had Columbus, Ohio. We brought it back to Boston, upstate New York, Colorado. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we did a ton of other shows where I would help a producer put it on in their area, or I would do it myself. So I was bringing out amazing guests, and the bands were getting better. So to the point that in 1980, which was the 20th anniversary of the Beatles, happening and British Invasion, Beatlemania, I did a show in Miami, which drew over 50,000 people. Wow. May Pang was the guest, and the band was a tribute to the Beatles, and it was just an amazing show. And all the vendors were, it's the biggest show ever, best show ever. I was on CNN. So 84 was where I think I made my mark as a force in the convention world. And from then on, I haven't stopped doing. They've morphed into festivals, but I haven't stopped doing Beatle events for fans.
So the conventions you no longer do themselves?
Not a convention per se, and I'll tell you why. So many of the guests are gone. And the big thing about a convention was having that really amazing guest, and then having a bunch of other guests who are lower, but there's not many who are alive.
Who is like your biggest? Would you say? Who was your biggest?
Best Cynthia Lennon, Mike McCartney, all that level. The dream guests I ever had were George Martin, Beatles producer, who at one point wanted to do a cruise with us. We almost did, worked with him. And like Julian Lennon, the siblings of the kids
Yeah.
are the kids of the actual Beatles. I would have always loved to have gotten, but never did. So it's mostly now about the music. So in those days, it was the guest was first, the memorabilia and all the merch was second, and then music might have taken a second, second fiddle to all that, and that didn't make sense. So now the festivals, multiple bands, 10 bands a day, a handful of dealers, and if we get a guest, that's cool. But it's all about the music,
And that's the Fab4 Festival, correct?
Yeah. The Fab4 Music Festival.
The last
and
one
there's
was
similar.
The last one was in July. Yeah.
Yes, and there's Abbey Road the River. That's very similar to that. There's something I think Beatles on. I think they're having a Beatles on the Beach next year, and in Liverpool, they have Beatle Week. And it's a whole week of that. It's nonstop. You walk around every corner and you hear Beatle bands out of every pub, every nightclub, every restaurant. So it's when it comes down to it, I always say it's 3 M's, it's the music, the memories, and the magic. The memories are for the people, live through it either themselves as first generation fans or their brothers and sisters or their parents brought them into it. But there's that still, the memory. The nostalgia factor, the M magic is that X factor. What was it about the Beatles? Why were they greater than everyone else? And it's a combination of personality and humor, but brilliance and great songwriting and great harmonies and all that. But the other M is the music, and that's the be all and end all. And that's what it's all about. The music still lives and will live on forever.
So I read somewhere that you were in a Monkees tribute band at one time.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Was this a one-time thing, or?
So in the early 80s, when we decided to bring the Monkee convention to Connecticut, there had been smaller versions of it in New Jersey, and they were so much fun. And I went as a fan, and I went as a vendor, and I said to the producer, who was McManus, I do the Beatles shows. Let's bring it to Connecticut, and I'll pump it up. We'll make it a bigger event than it is. And she was all right with that because I don't think she wanted to produce anymore. And we did the first one in a place called Bridgeport, Connecticut at a Holiday Inn. But Peter Tork came as the guest.
Wow.
Which was amazing. Yeah. No Beatle ever came to a Beatle convention. No Monkee had come to Monkees convention. So this was historic. It was just epic. But we realized we didn't have a Monkees band. And I had a bunch of friends who were musicians, and I'm not a good singer, but I'm a good entertainer. I'm a good performer. And I couldn't play an instrument. And I barely hold my note in key, but I was a great tambourine player, a great maraca player, and I knew all the songs. So I put together a band with some friends of mine. One was John Sheridan, who was an established musician, recording artist. He had already played at these Monkee conventions as a solo artist. He had the sideburns. He kind of, he was the Mike Nesmith, so we were good there. I had a rock and roll drummer from a group called the Excerpts, who were a pop new wave type band, and he knew all the stuff too. And Bill Last, who was one of my dearest friends, who was a co-editor of a magazine that I was involved with, music teacher. He became the music director, played bass, played guitar, did all the necessary stuff, and kept me in key. So I was there doing Let's Dance On, Oh Baby Come On. And I was out there, and we had Monkee Mania put together for that convention. But before we played the convention, we wanted to, get our chops in front of live audiences. So I booked us into some of the punk and new wave clubs around the state. And we were sandwiched in between, a Ramones-like 3-chord grunge band, and then this, real like Ziggy Stardust band, and then it was us. I got to tell you, the punkers and new wavers and the mods, they all loved us because Monkees music is new. It's that same power
who doesn't
pop.
Like the Monkees.
That's right. And we found that all these people who never admitted that they liked the Monkees, here were these musicians and all these, rockers and would-be rockers all loving Monkee Mania. So actually we're decent. We sounded good, we looked good, and we were fun. And yes, I was Davey in Monkee Mania.
So besides the conventions and concerts, you also run a haunted attraction called Fright Haven. Right?
We're all over the place.
Oh, okay.
But I get it, because you're tying into the book. This is good. So let me tell you that before, I always grew up loving Beatles, Monkees, horror, baseball. That was, that was my childhood. And for some reason, I was able to morph those things into things that I do as a profession. So I'm a DJ. I'm a party DJ. That's my main. That's my main thing. I'll go out, do weddings and bar mitzvahs and dances in schools, and that's my income. But I was also able to do all these great sidelines, whether it's a Monkey convention, Beatles convention, and I always wanted to find a way to incorporate my love of horror into the thing I do. And when I started doing the Beatle tours in 1983, which were very successful, my partner at the time, Danny, who's since passed, would always say, well, come on, let's do more stuff. He always wanted to grow and do more things. I was always kind of happy when things were successful and keeping. He would always want to build. And that's the way to be. And I've learned that he's right. And so he said, I would love to go to Transylvania. And if I would love to go there, I'm sure other people would too.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we started doing Dracula tours to Transylvania, believe it or not, and very successful. We'd go to Romania and spend a week there. And so I was kind of in the horror field, but I wanted to establish myself more so. So I went online and I created something called National Horror Happenings, which was a daily blurb, a daily newsletter that just gave a review of this, a preview of that, a news tidbit. And it was just a snippet every day that thousands of people actually subscribed to free. And it was great. So I did it for a bigger reason. And that's because I always had it in my heart, in the back of my head, that I would open a haunted attraction. And what was missing in Connecticut was a really great indoor haunted attraction. There were amazing outdoor ones. Yeah. And so, again, jumping into the same way I jumped into the Beatles convention when I was a kid, here I am, I'm married, I'm getting kids of my own. I'm saying, we got to do something new. Let's do a horror haunted house for Halloween. And we did. And it was successful. And I'm thinking, great, now my horror column is promoting the Dracula tours whenever I can. It's promoting Fright Haven, which is this great haunted house. And along the lines, I was not only writing the newsletter, but I was accumulating once a month a top 10 list from horror figure, a scream queen, someone who was a friend of mine. And I was just posting it online. So if I was friends with, I don't know, a rock star from many years ago, a guitarist from Vanilla Fudge, I said, Vince Martell, write me a list of your top 10 favorite horror movies or horror themes, and I'll put it on my newsletter. Yeah. So I've got the newsletter, I've got the Dracula tours, I've got the haunted house. I'm already now established as this horror guy. I'm attending horror conventions and Halloween conventions, and I'm looking, and I've got the scary beard and the hair back. And then when I'm doing the Beatles and Monkees, the hair comes forward, and I've got it, as a Beatle cut. I'm changing my persona for whatever I'm doing. But the haunted house is doing really great, and we lose the property. The property gets sold. I remember what happened. So we didn't do a haunted house. I had stopped doing haunted houses for about 5-6 years, and instead did those pop-up Halloween stores. So I was still kind of in the field, but and it wasn't until about 5-6 years ago that we reopened the haunted house, and now it's got new owners and it's bigger than ever, and it's really exciting that that's still around.
This is an actual house that you rent?
Well, where we are now, it used to be a multiplex cinema. Then it was a Bally's gym. We're talking about 20,000, 30,000 square feet. It's not a house. It's huge property. And we build into it, and we make it, a walkthrough.
And you participate. Because you're pretty busy in October, I would think, with this.
October, I am Scaremaster Chucky. And what I do up until this season, because I'm out on a book tour and I'm not there as much as I used to. But what I would do is I'd be the host. I'd be the guy that you come to first with your ticket. Yeah. I'd welcome you. Ask you where you're from, set it up, a little humor, a little creepiness, but I put you in a sense of full security. And then we open the doors and you're a guy. We're scaring the pants off you. We're not just talking music. We're talking fears and chills and scares. And so I'm still involved, but I'm not running it like I used to. But what's great about is being an actor at a haunted house is I'm also an actor in horror shorts and horror films. So, how do I have time for all this? I don't even know how I have time for all this, but I love doing everything I do.
I was going to ask you about one particular movie, not a horror movie, but you were in a Rolling Stones movie, Shine a Light.
I was.
And this was filmed at the Beacon in around 2006.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So how did you get the opportunity to be in the movie?
So at that time, I was getting cast in a lot of things as an extra. I was really getting a lot of extra roles, cameo roles. It's basically you go to New York, you wait on a set forever. Maybe you're called on to do something, whatever. So I got really, really fortunate because I would sign on for a lot of things and not get cast for a lot of things. But I learned that whatever you can you do this, the answer is yes. So when I was cast for that, they said, do you have experience backstage? Well, I didn't have to lie this one because I really did have experience backstage. I said, yes. What have you done? What haven't I've done? Lighting, I've done sound, I've done wardrobe, I've done everything I've possibly done. Here's actually a backstage. I hope we can see that. Backstage pass from that Shine a Light.
Oh, wow.
And it was a Martin Scorsese film.
Yeah.
I can say I was directed by Martin Scorsese. Now, the day that I was on, most of this was backstage, and they wanted me to do 2 roles. I only did 1 because it was I had to get back to Connecticut for something. So I was going to be on backstage, and then later on be part of paparazzi taking pictures also. So mind you, this whole concert is done. And then there's a separate scene of them coming off stage. Well,
so this is an actual full concert. This was like two nights, right?
Concerts happen separately.
Okay.
And then everything backstage this is secret. You can't tell anyone this. Everything else that happens is separately filmed. I'm in a film called The Sadist with Tom Savini, who you may or may not know. Tom Savini is one of the world's greatest makeup guys. He was from Dusk to Dawn, so he does acting, producing, everything. We were in a film together. Guess what? He wouldn't know me if he saw me on the street because we didn't do any of the scenes together. So my scene was in a kitchen as the dad. His scene was in the woods as a maniac attacking my son in the movie. Anyway, so similarly, the Stones film was all done. Our part was shot separately, recreating what had been backstage. Okay. And the day we were shooting, you're not going to believe this. Who comes on stage to say hello to Martin Scorsese? I don't know this guy, but everyone's yelling, "It's Bobby! It's Bobby! Bobby's here! Bobby's here!" I'm thinking, who's Bobby? No, Bob De Niro.
Oh, okay.
I would have liked.
I was thinking Bob Dylan, but
Bob Dylan. I would have loved either of those. Robert De Niro is on stage, and I guess everyone who's in the know calls him Bobby. And he came over and he hugs Martin Scorsese. What are you working on? The Stones, blah. These are my extras. Hey, how y'all doing? It was really exciting. So sometimes you get lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
To win 2 tickets to Chiller Theater in Parsippany, New Jersey, your secret word is Chucky. Just email us at jimandmikepodcast@gmail.com, and I will be picking a winner on October 24th. This is for admission to Chiller Theater Autograph Show. Tickets are valued at $30 each.
So they asked me as a backstage, they say, you are going to put the robe on Ron Wood as he walks off stage.
Wow.
And I did. It was about 20 or 30 takes. And they're trying to shove it and I do every take slower than the one before it, because I know that the only chance I'll be on this screen is I do this and I do a certain
smile
angle,
at the camera. No.
If you watch it and you freeze frame it, you get to see my face, you get to see the robe, but it zips by. And that's the case with a lot of things. I was in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty with Kristen Wiig and Stiller, Stiller, what's his name? Jerry Stiller, no, his son, Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
Don't forget Ben Stiller. And I'm in it for a second. You see me fleet by on the street. I was in The Bronx is Burning, which is an ESPN movie. And I'm there as a photographer and a person on the newspaper. And you see me from the waist down. So you never know how lucky you're going to get as an extra, if you're going to get in a scene or not.
Yeah, they could even cut the scene. You'd be there for a day or two.
Yes.
And you may not even...
How often you hear you're on the cutting floor?
I was...
The other...
I'd gone for it was at the Holiday Inn. They were looking for extras for this made for TV movie, and it was with Ed Begley Jr. I forget who else was in it, and it was being filmed in Clinton. That's where I have a print shop. And so this is when right now I own the print shop, but this is when I was working for someone. So I took the day off, and it rained that day. And I got a call that they weren't going to shoot that day, and I couldn't take off another day. But the cool thing was I was standing, it was only me and another person. Usually it was a very small print shop, and it was on a main street. Clinton's a very historical, quaint little town. And so I'm standing there, and I see, believe it or not, Ed Begley Jr. They weren't filming, walk past my shop. And for some reason... And I walked out the door, and he, for some reason, was running down the street. So I didn't get to, but I heard he was staying down at the Holiday Inn there.
Wow.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do that, but never have. I've been on a movie set after. It was One True Thing with William Hurt, Renee Zellweger, and this was, I think, right after Renee Zellweger was in Jerry Maguire. And I went, it was 20 degrees that day. They were filming a scene at the church, at the cemetery. And I came back the second day. I was the only one that came back. And they yelled, it was a wrap. So the guy's you can go back there, right? William Hurt comes walking down the hill. Renee Zellweger, there was only a couple people around her. She got it in her car and drove off then. But anyway, that was the only movie set I would say that I've been on. But
so cool!
It's probably a great experience, though. I
even
love being
doing
extra.
It's so tight. You're spending sometimes a 12-hour day for a 12-second shot.
Yeah.
But that's the tough part. But isn't that with everything? Is the production and the putting together take forever? But the final result is the thing, like a book. But while I'm thinking about opportune times, in the case of Shine a Light, I fit the bill. I knew backstage and all that. But there was another scenario, and you'll enjoy this, where they called me and said, "We see on your resume that you do character impressions." And Davy Jones, right? I didn't lie. I can do my hair and look McCartney-ish or Billy Joel-ish.
You just can't sing like them, right?
I just can't, exactly. But they said, "Did you ever do Elton
Jean?"
Now, see, that's good. You could have been. You could have been Davy. They said, "Can I do Elton John?" So what was my answer? Of course.
Sure. Yeah.
Of course I could. So I get cast in a show called Flight of the Conchords, which I had never heard of before. But of course, ran 2 seasons on HBO. And in my episode, episode 7 called Prime Minister, the 2 leads play in a tribute act as Simon and Garfunkel. So they're surrounded by all these other tribute acts. But in the plot, there's 2 Elton Johns. Patton Oswalt, the great comic actor, plays one of them. And I play the other one. So I am Elton John in Flight of the Conchords as Elton. And I really came off looking like them. And they did a good job. They gave me the hat. They put a space in my teeth. I was clean shaven and I put the big glasses on. And that's one of my proudest moments, you know, being on an HBO show that has aired so many times and you can see anytime. So that's exciting too.
Yeah, I'm going to have to see it. I have HBO. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, the acting thing. It's definitely a sideline. It doesn't make money and it's fun. And it's great when I go to conventions and I'm selling a book and it can say author, actor, sir, you know, and the actor is legit.
Yeah. You should get photos printed up from when you know,
I have a collage of me in my various roles. Many of, what's that?
So let's talk about
which
go on.
Go ahead. No, I said many roles. For some reason I die in them. So I have, you know, a lot of scenes where I either have bullet holes in my neck or I get shot in the head or I wind up being, you know, the zombie.
Oh, wow.
A lot of stuff like that. But anyway, I wanted to share those with you. Go ahead.
So let's talk about your book.
The
book of top 10 horror list. So there's a lot of celebrities. Well, that's the main focus of the book here, and horror movies.
Yes.
Like Micky Dolenz, we got Gary Puckett, Butch Patrick, Elliot Easton from the Cars, and even Barry Williams from the Brady Bunch. So I was going to ask you when you started gathering these lists, but you already told me it started with your website.
Yes. And also in 2010, I produced an event called Rock Con, which was the weekend of 100 rock stars, and it was in New Jersey in the Meadowlands. And we had 100 of these great names, you know, one of the Beach Boys, Tommy James, Gary, you know, all the people a lot of the people in the book. So when I was doing that online newsletter, I was reaching out to a lot of my rock people and saying, hey, I know I'm going to sit with the convention. Can you give me this list? Or when the convention was over, thank you. The convention was great. I need a list from you. And I was compiling those without even realizing that I had like 80 of these lists in a database.
Wow.
I didn't even realize I had many. Yeah.
So these go back a ways, some of them, right? Because there are some people that have already passed that are in the book.
Yeah.
So when did you realize maybe I should put this into a book? I mean, I know maybe you wanted to get to 100 or.
Yeah. So when COVID hit, all the things I do, I couldn't. I'm a DJ. I couldn't be out there doing parties.
Yeah.
I booked bands. There were no gigs. The tours stopped. Literally no conventions, no festivals. So I'm home. We're watching horror movies, my family and I. If it's a nice day, we go hiking, we go bicycling. Not a lot to do. They're asleep at midnight at the witching hour. I got 2 hours to do. And I'm thinking, where are these lists? Where are these lists? I find the lists. I say, my God, I've only got 20 or 30 to go. People like me are also home doing nothing. So I reach out and instantly I'm getting like, the lists are coming in from all these people who I'd forgotten, you know, that I didn't get lists from. Some sent nice apologies. Others said, yeah, I got nothing else to do. Here you go. So it was an opportune time. And so the book was 12, 15, 10 years, whatever, in the making without me knowing it. But the actual finishing only took a few months. What I had to do is go back and read all the lists, edit them, make sure they sounded, you know, coherent, sounded good. I had to write bios for every single one of them. Get a photo for all the artists, and then transpose a photo of maybe one of the movies they picked, so that it's a fully illustrated. You know, you feel that you got a really great book there, and because I did that weekend of 100 rock stars, 100 was always in my head. That's what I got to get. I can't do 99 or 101 or 107. 100 celebrities give their top 10 favorite list. And some of them, like you mentioned, some of the greats, and William Shatner and Ed Asner, who just passed away. There's names that are, whoa, how did he ever get those? And then there's the ones that maybe aren't as famous, who I either I'm friends with or I loved or were, you know, my own pop culture idols. But if you get it and you know pop culture and rock and roll, and you know how you're going to love like just about every name in there. There's 5 rock and roll Hall of Famers. There's a baseball Hall of Famer. So it's legit. And once I finished the book, I had a publisher who was very interested, and we just had to go back and forth to make sure the edits, the positioning was right, the order. I wanted a very complete, comprehensive index so that if someone thinks, I wonder if my favorite movie, The Omen, is in here, go to The Omen and they see who picked it and how many times.
Oh, I love that.
If they say, oh, yeah, or if I want to see which movies Pete Best, the original drummer of the Beatles, loved the most, go to that A, B, C, B, S, T, look it up in alphabetical order, and you see his list. So it's not something that, it's like a 800-page novel. Oh my God, I'm going to read this. It'll take me forever, or I'm going to sit in 5 nights. You pick it up, you read a list. Pick it up another day, you can go through it. It's fun. Who doesn't love top 10 lists?
I know.
And that's how it came about. It took a year from when it was finished till it came out. I thought, not knowing that it would be ready last Halloween, but it was ready for this Halloween. And it's so exciting. It's so great to have that finished, book in your hand, and to be able to do book signings, go to conventions and autograph them. It's a great feeling.
Yeah. No, I love, like you said, in the back, where you list every movie and then, who picked them.
Yes.
And then you also have the top 10 list of the most picked movies.
Most picked by the celebrity.
Yeah.
We're not going to give that away.
No.
But it's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, I'm going to mention one because I'm going to mention 2 movies because it was kind of interesting that people listed Jaws. Because Jaws I consider I don't consider a horror movie, but maybe a suspenseful.
Do you consider King Kong a horror movie?
Well,
you got silent.
I consider that a monster movie.
Great answer. So wait, so isn't Jaws a monster movie?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I don't know. I've never called it a horror movie for some reason.
Well, I think at some point,
I mean, there is killing in it, but I was thinking if Jaws could come out of the water, and he was killing people, then maybe it would be a horror movie. But
so Sharknado is a horror movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'll tell you what. No, I'm playing with you. I'm playing with you because since this book has come out, that's been 2 movies that everyone brings up. So it's great that you're bringing up Jaws and King Kong. And my answer to it is, before we called them horror movies, we called them monster movies. And the monster was because there was that one either creature or being or entity or whatever that fear into people. So now with that translation, King Kong, who was certainly not a bad creature, nor was Frankenstein's monster until society made them such or attacked them. It's the same case of so many aliens. They don't want to hurt us. They're attacked, so they attack back. So in the case of Jaws, those sharks were not attacked. They did the attacking. They were monsters. In my mind, any movie where there's that scary thing that can harm you, whether it's somebody breaking into a home as a home invader or a shark or a gorilla, in any case, that classifies as a monster movie and therefore fits as a film in a horror list. So yes, now
something that scares you. Yeah.
Right. When Psycho
sharks scare me, so I guess
I've come face to face with a barracuda under a ship, and until I realized that it was just sitting there waiting to attack someone, I wasn't scared. And then when we're face to face, I was scared. That was scarier than any horror movie I've ever been in. And it happened, overseas once. And to this day, I'm like amazed that I got away because I'm not a good swimmer. And I just was snorkeling under the water and there it was in front of me. I think that in the case of Jaws and in the case of King Kong, because we relate to Psycho. Psycho scared people so much that they didn't go into showers for weeks or months or years.
Yeah.
And there's not many people who didn't go back into the water at beaches and shores and seas and oceans because they were afraid of sharks. I think that has to qualify for being able to be in a book of this sort. And you're right, it's amazing how many people did pick that movie as part of it without thinking, wait, is this really a horror movie? No, automatically they went to that.
Yeah, I have a fear of water,
question.
and that might have, when I saw Jaws, I was pretty young, so who knows? It might have caused my fear of going in the ocean. I saw Orca. I saw Jaws at the Jersey Shore too, so I was at the.
Yeah, oh wow.
Yeah, in Wildwood.
I loved Orca. Orca was great. Wasn't that with Richard Harris who sang MacArthur Park?
I'm not sure. It's been so long. I remember reading the book, and I was young. But I like to read. I would read. When I was 15, I was reading Stephen King. So
wow.
And I haven't stopped. I've read every Stephen King.
Wow.
Now, your list in the book are movies that you were in. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
But I want to know you don't have to give me your top 10, but what are some of your horror movies, ones that you weren't in that you love or that you maybe watch, this time of year or even, a couple times, that you can watch over and over.
A bunch of answers to that. First, I want to tell you that when I was putting the book together, everyone assumed that when I told them about it, I can't wait to see your top 10 list.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going to do one. I'm going to do something a little different.
Yeah.
I think that if I do a top 10 list, and I don't know what, and Alien is the top one, or Exorcist, or what, Shining, whatever my top is, if that's in there, and then that happens to be in the top list of everybody's celebrities, I don't want anyone to think that somehow the definitive list was skewed by my choices.
Yeah.
So I intentionally left that out, but I also, in the back of this little crazy brain of mine, knew that I was going to somehow eventually do a sequel to it called The Bride of Top 10 Horror Lists, whatever.
Wow.
And that in that book we'll do a top 10 list. And in this one I thought, well, how can I be a sneak and include all the horror movies that I've been in that I love? How can I be sneaky?
Yeah.
And the way to do that was put in my own list. But anyway, so my kids are now 15, 16. I have one in graduate school. We have 3. And we love to watch horror movies together. There was a little gap where they weren't willing to see horror movies with me, and now they're seeing them again. So they're trying to catch up. And we just watched the original John Carpenter Halloween, and then they watched the last Jamie Lee Curtis one, whatever it was, in preparation for Halloween Kills. And so we're watching a lot of stuff that we feel we have to watch in order to watch the next one. So we just watched the old Candyman because we want to watch the next one.
Yeah.
But if some of my favorites of all time are The Exorcist and Halloween and the Universal classics, which I don't feel hold up, which they don't hold up well enough to share with my team. They won't sit through Bela Lugosi's Dracula, but I love Abbott and Costello Meet and Stein. That's one of my favorites.
I just watched that yesterday again.
It's still great. It's still funny, and it's you remember stuff, but yet there's always something in there. Oh yeah, I forgot. That's great. But there's a lot of modern classics. Get Out, Quiet Place. Malignant. There's a lot of movies that I loved Us. Ranks right up there with, if I did a top 10 of the greatest movies of this decade, I think Us would be in there, in some of those films, because fortunately for someone who doesn't love slasher films as much as a lot of people do, the derivations of slasher films, in my mind, have been more fun. what was the movie which was the Groundhog Day of horror movies? Happy Friday Day, whatever it was. So I love that, and I think because it plays on the slasher and takes it to the next level, as did Scream, as did I Know What You Did Last Summer. I like movies that make fun of its own genre. Cabin in the Woods is a great example because there's 5 billion horror Cabin in the Woods movies, and that one plays off of the one. Oh, and one of the actors who's in that actually was in a movie with. So that makes me feel good. Anyway, I'm digressing.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
To win 2 tickets to Chiller Theater in Parsippany, New Jersey, your secret word is Chucky. Just email us at jimandmikepodcast@gmail.com, and I will be picking a winner on October 24th. This is for admission to Chiller Theater Autograph Show. Tickets are valued at $30 each.
But I'm going to tell you the only movie that ever gave me nights. It wasn't a movie you would clarify as or categorize as a horror film, and it was a movie called Wait Until Dark.
Okay.
Audrey Hepburn plays a blind gal, and she has, and that's The Home Invasion by Alan Arkin, who was a comedian and a comedic actor who played it very serious, creepy, very scary. And that movie, the night that I saw it in a theater, and that night I was in one of those flu-like, half awake, half asleep, where you don't know if you're dreaming or not. And people were knocking on the windows, trees were brushing against them, people were coming in. That's the only movie that gave me nightmares as a person who understood horror movies. And, you wouldn't consider that a horror movie, but yet it scared me. So
that's one I haven't seen, and I've been wanting to have to see that movie. I know about
very late at night and see it in the dark. Wait until dark when you see it.
So you mentioned there might be a sequel, but I was thinking maybe do if you did a top 10, it might have to do with music, but that's just an idea.
So if you promise not to tell anybody.
Okay.
The next non-sequel to this will be the book of top 10 Beatle lists.
Oh, there we go.
I'm actually doing a Beatle title, and I've gotten about 20 celebrities already. I want to hit 100, and I'm going to do, maybe a series. But the next one, the sequel to this will be Bride of the Book of Top 10 Horror Lists. I've already gotten really cool people like Gilbert Gottfried and Bobby Rydell. I've already gotten a ton of Tommy James who've given me their list that didn't make it into this list. So they'll be in the next book. And whilst I solicit people to give me horror lists, I'm also soliciting them to give me Beatle lists. Favorite Beatle movie, favorite Beatle song, favorite scene from a movie, favorite book. People who are connected or related to the Beatles. I'm getting their favorite. The Beatles hairdresser Leslie Cavendish is giving me his favorite 10 favorite Beatle
I just got
memories.
his book. I didn't read it yet.
It's good. It's really good. Yeah. So people who are associated with the Beatles are giving me more personal stuff. People who are celebrities who are fans just like we are giving me their top 10 favorite list. But that
I have a person for you. And his name is Jim Babjack. He's in the Smithereens.
Right. Him and Dennis.
He's the guitarist. Right. They are huge. Yeah, Dennis Dykent. They are the biggest Beatles.
They are such
fans.
Big Beatles.
So you could. They're very accessible. So
Dennis is a friend of mine. I'm going to reach out to Jim and Dennis. Good call. Yeah. I used to be real friends with who was the lead singer who passed?
Pat Denizio. Yeah.
And he had given me half a list, and he said he was going to finish it.
Oh yeah, he was a big movie nut in general.
Pop culture, horror, Beatles.
Oh yeah. I knew Pat, and I've known the guys for a while. I've been to like 40 plus shows in one form or another. When Pat had his shows at his house, and I really miss Pat. But believe it or not, the Smithereens just played in my town, Washington, New Jersey. They've never played here before, and every year there's a festival, a music festival. So I could walk there. It's like a mile, but Marshall Crenshaw was singing, he sings with them now. And I got to meet Marshall, trying to get him to do an interview. We'll see how that goes.
He's tough. He passed on doing the horror lists. I don't know if I asked him for a Beatle list, but in 2014, I did a 50th anniversary tribute to the Beatles. I did it in 4 different venues in New York. One was the Apollo. One was Town Hall, where the Monkees are coming to in a few weeks. And Town Hall, it was literally the who's who of people. It was Gene Cornish and Tommy James, and on and on. And presenters that week, we had Geraldo Rivera, the amazing Kreskin, Charles Grodin, rest his soul, and Marshall Crenshaw performed for us, and he was great, and he's a great guy. But he doesn't love doing interviews so much. But Smithereens. Oh yeah, getting back to the Smithereens. When I did that weekend of 100 rock stars, RockCon in the Meadowlands, New Jersey, back in 2010. Most of the acts were there to just sign autographs, meet fans, sell their merch. Yeah. And then at the end, we did a jam. So if you wanted to play, you can play. It was loosey-goosey. Yeah. But the Smithereens did a set. Yeah. They actually did a whole set there, and they were great. Yeah. I think they were sponsored by a drum company or a guitar. I can't remember at the time, but they just rocked it, And it's sad not having him, but I'm glad the guys continue the Smithereens. Yeah.
So, what are some appearances? I know you're going to be at Chiller, which is Chiller
exciting.
Theater. And that
is so exciting.
Yeah. Have you been there before?
Halloween week. So when I started doing the Dracula tour, Chiller Theater and Act Tour were co-sponsors. We were both partners in that. All my materials would list Chiller Theater as a proud, partner. And when I go to the events, everyone who walked through the door. Now, in those days, it really was a monster horror convention. Now it's more of a celebrity.
Oh yeah.
So I'd be at the door and I would give out a flyer to everyone who walked through the door to tell them about my Dracula tours. Okay. So from about 1998 till about 2005 or 6, I didn't miss a show. Myself or my partner or my wife.
I probably met you. Probably handed me one of those because I've been going I've been going since like 96, 97. Not every show, but I've been to a lot of shows.
And the only reason that I stopped was because I opened up the haunted house.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was
So wait. Actually, no. In 1998, I stopped going to the Halloween version of it because he does 2 a year.
Yeah, and one
because I was hosting the tour in Transylvania. Yeah. So I stopped going in 98, and then in 2005 I did the haunted house. So I literally just stopped going for many years, and I miss it so much. But to return, not just as someone standing at the door handing out flyers, and not just as a fan walking around, but to return as an actual guest. Yeah. Oh my God, this is a dream come true. I'm a guest this coming weekend in Fort Wayne, Indiana at the Dead Convention, which is really exciting. In January, I'm a guest at Horrorville in Cocoa, Florida, the Space Center, which is a horror paranormal convention. I'm a guest there. And I'm doing all these libraries and cool stores and bazaars and all these places where it's much fun meeting people, because if you sell a book on Amazon, you don't know it until, if residuals ever come in. You don't know it. But when you meet a fan, you go, oh my gosh, sure, I remember you from 1994 Beatles convention. Or, oh yeah, you subscribed to my magazine, Good Day Sunshine. Or you used to get horror happenings. There's a contact with them. And a lot of people, if we start talking about the book, it's funny because Jaws comes up and King Kong comes up, and there's always a debate about that. But everyone wants to always tell me their favorite horror movie, and I love that. And they always ask me what mine is. But whatever they'll tell me, I'm listening to what they're saying. And when I sign their book and I do an inscription inside, and it's to Jerry, glad you also love Salem's Lot, or whatever he happens, the person he or she happens to say. Really want to personalize it. So that's what's the great thing about going to the conventions and the book signings and the personal appearances, but B, when people order the book from me, from my wife, I can also personalize it, which you can't do through Amazon or any of the booksellers.
So what is your website?
Website is the name of it's the name of the book without the. So it's book of top 10 horror lists.com.
Okay.
And it's 10 with the number 10, not TEN. And when you go there, it actually says the email or a phone number, and you can, get the book directly through the website. But you can get it on Amazon too. Just get it, because that much fun.
I'm going to bring my book. Have you sign it?
I will not sign. No, of course. No. Of course, I'll be on.
I'll be there Saturday.
I'll be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Chiller Theater Expo Convention, Parsippany, New Jersey, at the Hilton Hotel.
Yes. Very
excited. Now, I will tell you that Kevin Clement, who produces Chiller, was the very first list I ever got.
Okay. Wow.
Because he was one of my inspirations for being in this. So if you see Kevin, and you should see him, he produces the show and he's there a lot, scootering around, tell him you got the book and you were like, it's so cool that he's the first list in there, and maybe get him to sign it too. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody in the book is going to, haven't really.
You there?
Yeah. I don't know if anybody that's in the book is going to be there. I don't know if I've come across that has done a list in the book.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't thought of that. I know that a lot of people I've asked in the past who said they probably would are going to be there. So I'm going to approach them again when I go to Fort Wayne. Danny Trejo, who I know I really want to get his. There's some I really, really want to get, and I've been keying on. And the one that I expect to get, I want to share with you because it's one of the best chapters in the book. And it's John Lennon's sister, Julia Baird. And she said, Charles, she's one of three who said, I'm not a big fan of horror movies. And I go, I don't care. Write me a list of
she
things
had some Shakespeare films.
That was genius. No, she came up with the 10 Shakespeare elements that involve horror.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest chapter of the book.
Oh, yeah. She goes into great detail. That's,
It's like a college thesis. It was like, oh, my God. The other two, right? Am I right?
Yeah,
it was amazing. The other two who were reluctant, one was John Sebastian from the Love and Spoonful, Woodstock legend John Sebastian, who he'd never seen 10 horror movies to do a list, but had a few good stories. So I said, okay, it's worthwhile. We'll put it in. But the other one, and you're not going to believe this, was Boris Karloff's daughter, Sarah. Now, Sarah Karloff has appeared at many horror conventions. She's
usually at Chiller. Yeah, she's been at Chiller a lot.
Ton of time.
And Boris Karloff's daughter, or no, you just mentioned. Who's the other? Vincent Price's daughter has been there too.
Daughter, yes. Yeah. But wait, let me tell you about Sarah Karloff. I love telling this story because she said, Charles, I don't like horror movies. I won't watch them.
Wow.
I mean, I've seen my dad's, but you can't count on me for that. I go, come on, can't you just write a list of the 10 things that scare you?
Yeah.
She goes, okay, I will. And number 10 was having to do this list.
That's
genius,
funny.
Right?
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
So did I miss anything? Anything you want our listeners to know?
I want them to know that you and I will do a show on Beatles, then we'll do a show on Monkees. Then it's hard to believe that, so we share the same loves of so many things here.
I love pop culture and
pop culture. That's what it's all about. And so that someone like yourself, I hope, and the people who watch your show and listen to it are so similar to us, because when you pick up a book like this, and you see a Ruth Buzzi,
Yeah,
you want,
yeah.
automatically, oh my gosh, of course, Rowan and Martin's laughing.
Mhm.
I can't believe she's still alive. I can't believe she did a horror, list. I think that's the fun of this book.
Mhm.
Unlike, of course, we got William Shatner. He's great. And, you got Joe Lansdale, who's a phenomenal writer. And there's a lot of big name scream queens, Micky Dolenz, Monkees. There's a lot of names that everyone's going to know. But then there's these other names that, I forgot about Karen Black. What a great actress she was.
Yeah.
The Terranova. And her list is dynamite, So it's going through the book and finding Dave Winfield, Baseball Hall of Famer, and he's got a list. That's the fun of this, is not knowing the 100 celebrities, but picking them up and seeing what their lists are, and then seeing if your own favorite lists and favorite movies match theirs.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's good that you didn't put, because I even looked in the beginning, you didn't list the celebrities in the beginning, so you actually have to, Oh, it is at the end? Okay.
Yeah, and I did that with that thought. It's the last index in the book. It's your index of contributors is right in the back.
Okay.
And it's in alphabet order, which the order is the same as in the book.
Okay.
So you're getting 300 pages of quality fun. It's fun.
Oh yeah.
If you love pop
you
culture,
said, you could, and like you said, you could pick it up, read it. It's like a book of short stories, I mean, they're
because every list is a chapter.
Yeah, where you'll read one story, but you're not going to sit there and maybe read the whole book at once. But no, it's a great book. And everybody, my podcast partner, Mike, who I have another, Jeremy's filling in for him, my friend Jeremy. He'll be with me at Chiller. But Mike always tells me everybody loves lists, because we just did our top 5 live albums that he's like, people like lists, so that's why
Lists and countdowns. It's why David Letterman's top 10 list was an inspiration for me. Everyone loved that. And I don't believe Mike exists, because I've never been interviewed and I never met him.
Okay.
So
no, he does.
You, but maybe someday we'll do it.
Yeah. So it was good talking to you, Charles.
Oh, great. And thank you for having me on, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to promote the book of top horror lists.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you at Chiller. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I will come by and I'll talk to you. Thank you, Charles. Have a good day. Bye.
You too.
Today's interview was recorded on Zoom and at Did You Say 7 Studios in Washington, New Jersey. Go to the YouTube channel for exclusive video content. Exit music by the band 99%. Today's show was produced and edited by Jim Thatcher. You can find Jim and Mike Talk Music on Apple Music, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts.